team that's going through a transition but is embracing that transition is the Tulane Green Wave. It's been a tough offseason for them, but it's a season of change and a season of embracing that adversity. John Summerall's done a good job of that, and today we take a look at the top 10 players coming back for him or will contribute in this upcoming season. We'll also take a look at the schedule and see what we should expect from this team in 2025. Before we do that, though, make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It goes a long way in helping the channel grow. We're already seeing tremendous growth so far in the last couple of years, and we want to keep that going. But let's dive into the Tulane Green Wave. Now, if you followed Tulane at all, you know that the defense and John Summerall have to be on the same page and have to be a big reason why they succeed. And the defense last year did exactly that. Now, you do lose a ton of talent, whether that's the NFL draft, transfer portal, graduation. They have a ton of new starters that they're going to have to identify and figure out who's going to step up in a big way. Sam Howard is coming back, fortunately for them, a guy who was a second team All AAC selection last year, and he is someone that takes on a new role. You lost quite a bit of talent at the linebacker position, but having him back gives you kind of some of that peace of mind knowing that this is a guy who's going to get our calls right. He knows how to get guys in position, and some of the guys that are in front of him will need that help. They'll need some of that guidance. They'll need some of that advice of where they need to go, how they need to play a certain look. And he is someone that having him back makes your life a lot easier. Flipping to the offensive side of the ball, Derek Graham returns after a big year for him, a first team All AAC selection. And this is an offense that also saw a ton of turnover. This is an offense that will have a ton of new starters, and the offensive line will have at least 3 new starters as well. Derek Graham returning for them at tackle is a huge return and gives them some of that consistency up front. Again, with all the new faces, you need to find guys that are going to step up. Some of those guys are coming in from the transfer portal, and having a guy like Graham to explain the offense, explain certain things is going to be huge. Flipping back to the defensive side of the ball, Cameron Hamilton coming back is big for a couple of reasons. And when you lose a guy like Patrick Jenkins, that's always going to hurt. It's not going to be easy to replace a guy like him, but Cameron Hamilton coming back is a huge thing for this defense. And again, everything starts up front. If you're disruptive up front, which Tulane has been in the past, that's a big reason why they've been so successful. The guys up front getting in the backfield, making disruptive plays. Cameron Hamilton, when you're a third team All AAC, it means you're doing good things. Now you lose some of the depth around you where you step into a new role. Now you're a guy who people rely on to make big plays. And if he can do that, you're in a good position. If you have struggles, it'll probably be because teams are focused on him and they're trying to take him away. And that's where you rely on other guys to step up. If other guys can do that, Tulane will be just fine. Again, there's a ton of turnover, but with some of the guys that we'll talk about here in a little bit, you feel like they're in a good position. They address needs where guys can step in and play right away and have that experience versus maybe like a project. But Cameron Hamilton steps into a new role, and he's very vital to Tulane's success. Now, the quarterback position had a ton of turnover as well. You see Ty Thompson enter the portal, come back, switches to tight end. You also see Darian Mensah go to Duke. Kai Horton hits the transfer portal. Then you bring in a number of talented players. Initially, you bring in TJ Finley, who eventually transfers out. Donovan Leary comes in from Illinois. Caden Samanza comes in from Ball State. And late in the transfer portal process, you bring in Brendan Sullivan. And Brendan Sullivan, to me, brings the highest ceiling of those 3 guys. I think that he is going to have a lot of fun in this offense. Joe Craddock's offense is one of the more underrated offenses that we saw last year. A group that was very good at certain things and very explosive at times as well. This is a group that finished top 25 in a lot of statistical categories. And I think that they're going to have a lot of fun with Brendan Sullivan running the show. When he transferred from Northwestern to Iowa, I didn't quite get it. You saw some really exciting things for Iowa last year when he was running the show. Now he gets a chance to be QB1, to make big plays. And if what we saw last year in small blips can turn into a full season, this team's going to be so much fun. A guy who could have a major impact on this team is Mo Westmoreland. Bringing in someone like this is going to help a position of really a drastic need. When you lost the amount of talent that Tulane did, bringing in a guy from UTEP who's extremely disruptive, is huge. Now you're probably thinking, okay, it came from UTEP. UTEP's terrible. If you're terrible, that means that any player that has any sort of success is so easy to take away because all you have to do is send help. So the fact that he had 10 tackles for loss and 8 sacks speaks to his ability to win on a bad team with extra attention sent his way. Teams weren't just ignoring him. They were telling their players essentially, this is the guy we have to take away. If you take him away, we'll have success. And a lot of times that worked. But the fact that he had that kind of production at UTEP speaks to what he can do with a team that has more talent. Now, while Tulane does lose a ton of guys up front, they're not going to be completely barren. They're not going to lose everybody. They're going to have players that can step up. We talked about Cameron Hamilton. We're going to talk about another guy here in just a second. We'll talk about the guy that should line up opposite of him. So he's going to have plenty of opportunities to see more favorable matchups. Even if that player is more talented, he'll get a lot of more one-on-ones, and that should potentially result in the same type of production. On the back end, again, it sounds like a broken record, but Tulane got hit pretty hard with the transfer portal, NFL, in the secondary as well. But Bailey Despine is coming back after a second team All AAC selection. The production maybe doesn't speak to a ball hawk, but the fact that he did what he did last year, if you watch the film, you'll see exactly what makes him so good. Sometimes he makes plays that go unnoticed. It's the little things that he does right, and he's a leader in this defense, a multi-year starter for Tulane. He is someone that's going to have to help some of these new guys get up to speed, especially in the secondary. Explosive plays are going to come at a premium until someone steps up, and bringing in a guy like Amari Hayes could fix some of those concerns. This is a guy who comes in from FAU, didn't necessarily have the greatest production, but this was an FAU team that struggled throwing the football. Now he comes to an offense that hopefully gets him more opportunities. Did have 39 catches last year, 590 yards, average over 15 yards per catch. So he's relatively efficient with the football in his hands, and he added 3 more scores. So you're looking at a guy who can definitely take things to the next level with this offense. Again, Joe Craddock's offense has the potential to get players the football and let them make plays, and Amari Hayes could be the next guy that they rely on. We alluded to him before, but we were talking about the defensive line and a guy who could step up in a big way at defensive tackle. Santana Hopper is someone who I think has a ton of potential to come in right away and make a monster impact. When you look at what he did at App State, a multi-year starter, knows how to get to the quarterback, knows how to be disruptive in the rushing attack. 36 tackles last year, 9 tackles for loss, 5 sacks. Again, a guy who just knows what to do, knows how to use leverage, knows how to be disruptive. And again, if Sam Howard is going to do less work, it's because the defensive line has found replacements for the guys they lose. Again, nobody's probably going to replace Patrick Jenkins one-to-one, but bringing in Santana Hopper, bringing back Cameron Hamilton speaks to what this group can do, and it just comes down to depth after that. Another guy that's going to help up in the trenches is on the offensive line in Jordan Hall. The Liberty transfer is a massive body at 6'4", 345 pounds, and pairing him with some of the guys they have coming back, Derek Graham is one of them, like we talked about. That's going to be a really fun group. That's going to be a group that, even though they have some turnover, they feel like they have the right guys in place, and it just comes down to how do they gel with each other? Do they have enough depth? And can they stay healthy? And finally, we mentioned it before, but Gerard Henderson is a guy who could have a big year with most people probably paying attention to Mo Westmoreland. Looking at his production, not the greatest numbers, but still speaks to, even in his limited role last year, 22 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 3 sacks. Tulane had a number of guys on the defensive line that could have come back, could have been solid contributors, and their departures open doors for guys like Henderson. He has the ability, as we've seen, to do some really exciting things, and it would be really interesting to see how he handles this new role. Can he step up when they need him? Can he take on those new responsibilities? Those are going to be the big questions. Now, when you look at the schedule for this team, a lot of the concerns have to do more with what Tulane doesn't have coming back, what they have to replace more than anything, because a lot of these games, if they have things figured out, are winnable games. Their over-under is not set right now. I think I would put it at 7, just giving John Summerall the benefit of the doubt, even with the amount of turnover they have. Northwestern at home, that's a winnable game. Even with the turnover, that's still a winnable game. Unless Northwestern, I mean, they're still going to be a tough team, but that's a winnable game for sure. At South Alabama, might have been a little bit more difficult had they not lost nearly everyone to the transfer portal. Duke and Ole Miss will be tough. Those are going to be games that I don't think this team wins, but the fact that Darian Mensah comes back with Duke is a very interesting game that I'll keep my eye on. Tulsa is not necessarily anything to worry about until they prove themselves. Then you have a couple of games sandwiched in between 2 bye weeks. ECU and Army, those are 2 teams that expect to compete for an AAC championship. Tulane is familiar with Army as they faced them in the AAC championship last year. That's going to be tough. And again, if your defensive line is not up for the task and Army is humming at this point with that triple option, you could be in trouble. The final stretch here is full of teams that have potential or could be better and have new coaches. So UTSA and Memphis both think that they're going to be competing for an AAC championship. So that's going to be interesting in terms of how does Tulane handle those situations? Are they at that point? Because at the end of the season, we're going to know, is Tulane able to figure out some of these new players and their adversity? Are they able to handle that? Or are they in kind of a rebuilding year? The last 3 games, FAU, Temple, and Charlotte, all 3 have new coaches. And at this point, we're going to know which of those 3 is a kind of a surprise team potentially, but which of those 3 teams has the ability to beat Tulane. I think that John Summerall has raised the floor even after Willie Fritz left, and there's a certain level that you just don't think they fall to, but you never know. I still have the floor at 6-6, but I think if this team puts together, 9-3 is definitely on the table. I don't necessarily feel confident that they're going to get to 9-3, but this is definitely a team that still makes a bowl game. There's a ton of turnover, there's a ton of roster changes, but when you look at this team and who's running it, you feel confident that consistency is still in place.